Welcome to USMNT Weekly on the Total Soccer Show. It's our regular foray into all things men's national team. On this episode, we're going in depth on the March roster announcement. We're going position by position, giving our verdict on the squad, the strengths, the weaknesses, the hits and the misses, etc. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello Taylor Rocco. Are you adequately dressed for this podcast? Our viewers on YouTube might notice a pattern that's happened with some folks on this. This.
A literal pattern. We've got two Wattos in the house. We found both of them. No, I am not prepared. I did not come fully kitted out. I feel like I've let myself and the podcast down. I'll see myself out.
Same. I did not get the memo, but the memo was clearly spread between Graham Ruthven and Joe Lowry. Joe, how are you? You seem to be dressed splendidly today.
I am well, thank you. I'm stoked to talk about this roster. These are always some of my favorite shows. And I thought Graham and I were doing home and you and Taylor were doing away. But
yeah, come on, guys.
Graham, did we forget to text them? I don't understand what happened.
I know. You don't get the memo? Letting the team down here. Quite literally. The US is now not going to win the World Cup, and it's all Taylor and Ryan's
We were
fault.
so close.
All right, Graham Ruthven, how are you? As our kit expert, you're wearing the new home shirt. What's the verdict now? It is touching your skin.
It's great. I genuinely love it. I put it on my Instagram, as I tend to do with new shirts that I end up acquiring. And the number of people, non-US fans, who haven't seen this shirt, who have got in touch to say, oh, that's a good one. And I tend to agree. I think it's very nice. I will say, and I was saying this off air before we started recording, I splashed out and I went for the authentic version. It's very thin. I presume it's designed for like elite level athletes, not me. And so my early VSP for the World Cup is a US player is going to get it ripped off them in a challenge with an opposition player. That's going to happen, I think, at least once.
Is it thin, Graham, or are you just getting musclier?
Definitely not that. We can rule that out.
Okay, all right. I do like the shirt. It looks fantastic. Unrelated, Graham, can I borrow $180?
Sure. For this, sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're going to get into the roster, of course, which was announced earlier this week. Before we do so, let me tell you about patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. It's a URL, easy for me to say. And if you type it into your web browser, you'll find our bonus content. You'll get bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server. All of the cool kids are hanging out in there, the Discord server. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Plus, you can join the TSS Scouting Network, where you can be assigned a player. You can find yourself a player to track this season. Send us in your scouting reports. We'll read them out on this here feed. You might even get some on this episode and on our bonus feed as well. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Thanks to everybody who joins us in there. All right, Joe, roster has dropped. We're going to go through it for these games, of course, coming up in March against Belgium and against Portugal in Atlanta. Now, my opening salvo for you, Joe, is that like a year ago, we may have expected this roster to be fairly final, right? We would have thought we were building towards something here, and this would be something approximating what we're going to get at the World Cup. But it seems, and there is direct quotes from Mauricio Pochettino, that this is not the case. He said in his press conference, well, I can tell you that everyone is saying that maybe this is a last opportunity. It's not close. It's still open. It's not the final roster. So, in that instance, we've not quite got the final piece of the puzzle, have we?
Sure. I don't think so, although what else is Poch supposed to say, right? So it's him balancing both of those things. You can't just come out and say, we're all done, stop trying Yunus Musa and Jack McGlynn and all the other omissions from this roster. That's not how Poch is going to act. That's not how he's acted basically all throughout his tenure. He's been all about breeding competition in this team, even over something like chemistry. Now, I do believe that this is very, very close to what the World Cup roster is going to be, because ultimately, even though we had some pretty low lows under Pochettino and some big questions about him, and I was a little concerned about how this all was going, Poch, I think, knows how to identify talent, and we see that with some of the players in this roster. This just looks like a roster that makes sense for the U.S. men's national team, and I don't think there's a single person, barring the injuries, right, if we set those aside, I don't think there's a single person that would look at this roster, if it was the World Cup roster and we were in these same situations with the same injuries, and really have anything to complain about, which is weird, but I think that's where we are.
Yeah, if you were picking a roster for the World Cup opener to happen tomorrow, this is what the squad would be. Maybe a couple of the injured guys who are not in the squad would power through, and maybe Haji Wright, for example, who apparently felt a sensation in his groin, according to Frank Lampard.
Did we all?
I thought we were done with that scandal at the Olympics. I don't know. I'm confused.
Apparently not. But maybe like Haji Wright would power through that sensation if this was actually the World Cup and would be in this squad. But otherwise, this is the core of the squads, and I agree with Joe. Poch's whole thing since coming in has been, well, one of his biggest tasks was to eradicate the complacency that had built up in the Berhalter reign era, and so he's not going to go back on that now. So I understand why he's saying what he's saying, but this does feel pretty close to being the World Cup squad. And what's funny is, I thought where you were taking us, Ryan, was a year ago, this was very much the squad, as it is now, with a couple of exceptions, but this was the core of the squad. And like a broken toy, we have unassembled it, and then in the space of 12 months, reassembled it again, and kind of worked out in the same position we were to begin with. Let's just hope the culture is a little bit better now. I think that's what we're counting on.
It's almost like the pool isn't that deep, and we had to
almost.
make sure that we'd exhausted all options, or tried to exhaust all options. I personally hope he keeps the bit going, and even at the World Cup when the squad is announced, just refuses to call it his senior set team. Even when he takes like the Real Madrid gig this summer, he continues to talk about how the U.S. roster isn't fixed yet. I need that to keep going. By my count, we're missing, I would say, 3, like, in my opinion, definite squad members due to injury, or, yeah, all 3 are due to injury. Outside of that, I agree with what's already been said. This feels more or less like a lot of the names we're going to see this summer.
Indeed. Well, let's get to it, Taylor. 10 changes from the squad from November here. Let's start off with the goalkeepers. 4 of them. 4? There's Chris Brady, Roman Celentano, Matt Freese, and Matt Turner. Taylor, I suppose, is this Matt Freese is to lose at this point, presumably?
I assume so. I mean, that's how it's been. It's been Matt Freese, even when Turner's been there. It's been Matt Freese starting. That was the case in the Gold Cup. That was the case in, like, at least, 2 of the recent 6 friendlies? Because Turner really hasn't played. He played the semifinal of the Nations League loss to Panama. He played the third-place game as well, which was also a loss. He played the June friendly against Switzerland, a 4-0 loss. He's had a rough time, Matt Turner, playing for the U.S. of late. And then he's on the bench for the 6 Gold Cup games, either on the bench or not called up for their last 6 friendlies. It does seem like it is Matt Freese's job to lose, but I've said this before. I don't think anyone has had strong opinions one way or the other. I don't think we've seen Matt Freese have that statement game yet, and maybe you can't until the World Cup starts, but it does feel more open than maybe it has in the past at this point leading into a World Cup. It feels like very often we have a set number 1, or at the very least a very clear competition between 2 keepers who are close to the top of their game. I'm not sure that's what we have in this scenario, so it does seem like it'll be Matt Freese, but it could also be Matt Turner for one of these friendlies. Joe will know better than I what type of form all 4 of these gentlemen are in.
Yeah, Matt Turner's been in pretty good form for the Revs so far this season, and even to close out last season. That said, I'd be shocked if it wasn't Matt Freese. Now, don't confuse me. I'm not saying that I really care if it's not Matt Freese. I don't really care, and that's to your point, Taylor. I just don't think there's a lot that separates these goalkeepers at the moment. But Freese has started 12 straight games with the U.S. men's national team. He's Poch's number 1. I don't really believe that there is a competition, if I'm totally honest about that. Poch can talk about it, and he will continue to do so. But I think this, to me, reads as Matt Freese is the number 1, Matt Turner is the number 2, and Brady and Celentano are fighting to not be the one dropped from this roster, and probably then to be the one not dropped ahead of the World Cup roster.
Yeah, I mean, behind Matt Freese, there's a big blob of other goalkeepers that includes Celentano and Brady and Patrick Schulte, Jonathan Klinsmann, Diego Kochen, Horvath, I guess, Drake Callender. There's a whole bunch of them there, and it's not really surprising. It's not surprising to me anyway that we see any of those beyond Matt Freese being called up. What I will say, though, is Matt Turner wasn't called up for November, right? So this is a recall for him. And so that does say something about how he has gone up in Poch's estimations. I know that Jesus Perez was at the New England Cincinnati game at the weekend, and they still called up Roman Celentano from that game, conceded 6. That was a rough one for him in front of the national team assistant manager. But I personally feel like we're going to see Freese in both games, because if Poch was going to experiment with this position, I feel like he would have done it before now. And we previously thought he was. We thought he was going to do Freese in one game, Turner another, or another goalkeeper. And I can't remember if it was October window or November window or maybe both. And he didn't. And Freese just has continued in that spot ever since. So I very much feel like we're going to see Freese in both games here.
Graham now has me wondering if anyone has ever played their way out of contention in front of a U.S. scout. Because you would assume that, losing 6-0 might make the assistant think, let's wait one more round and see what happens. But here we are. I wonder if there's been a player who's just passed into his own net and the coach just kind of quietly walked out of the stadium. Okay, I've seen what I need to see.
I think that must be what happened with Sean Zawadzki. Is he's been on basically every roster since the dawn of Mauricio Pochettino's time, and now he's finally not. Something must have happened. I mean, that's the only explanation.
He's going to pull Larry David and just show up at this camp like, no, I was called in.
guys.
You don't remember? I'm supposed to be here. It's all good.
So if this is such a lock for Matt Freese, then why are there 4 keepers?
No idea.
To work out the depth
you need
behind
them for
them.
training. You need balance in training, right? You need, if you're going to do like two
need pairs.
games with goalkeepers in each, that's pretty much it, right?
Fair. Okay. Very
They
good.
don't have a robot to do that job these days. I feel like we should
AI
be
could
putting,
do that, right? Surely you can. There's a GPT prompt
we
for
should
that.
be, put the boffins to work on that.
There you go.
I think.
All right, let's talk about centre-backs. Talk about players who've played themselves out of contention. Nocky Banks might have done so, but for reasons. Mark McKenzie is in here. Tim Reames in here. Chris Richards, Austin Trusty, and Miles Robinson. Graham, what are we making of that pack of CBs?
No real surprises because obviously the biggest disappointment of the whole squad, I guess, is the absence
CCV.
of Noki Banks of CCB. Yes, I mean, he's coming back soon, guys. He's coming back. Don't you? Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
I know. But the thing with Noki Banks is it wasn't a surprise, right? Because there's been quotes from the player himself about how he's torn between the US and Germany, and Kicker reported last week that Banks was going to sit out these March friendlies. So I didn't expect to see his name here, but it's still a bummer that he's not involved. Poch certainly didn't close the door on Banks being included in the World Cup roster. This was the quote from Pochettino yesterday. It always is in our minds, but at the moment, if he made the decision, and the decision is to be with us, of course, that is not going to be in our radar to see if we select him or not. Poch's quotes are tough sometimes. That was words. But at the moment, he was very clear in the situation that he's not available for not to be selected, but he has still not made a decision. Great, thanks for that, Poch. I'm really pleased I read
Did
that
Poch
out.
write the Nottingham Forest banner from the weekend, by the way?
I think the AI robot working on the spare goalkeeper, might have got sidetracked in coming up with that quote. Basically, he's saying that if he does make himself available before the World Cup, he can still make that roster. But that's now going to be much more difficult for him to be integrated. There's 2 friendlies before the World Cup. He could maybe get a run out in those 2 games, but you'd be dropping him basically cold into the tournament itself. And so I do kind of wonder now if, even if Poch is saying the door isn't closed, if realistically we're not going to see him until the next cycle.
Yeah,
Because these are friendlies,
It's just
right?
Oh, go Taylor. You go.
I was just going to say, these are friendlies. Like, it wouldn't have cap-tied him. So he could have come and played and just kind of gotten a better sense of the camp, of the vibe, of what it's going to be like heading into a World Cup. I suspect that maybe Pochettino didn't want that. If you're not going to be committed to the team, there's other players who could be. It is a minefield with all of this for the coach and the player, how much you have to navigate. Because if Pochettino were to say, yeah, we didn't call him in because he didn't seem like he was ready to commit, we wanted to give other people an opportunity, that gets easily twisted into Pochettino trying to force Banks' hand, and then it becomes a talking point in that way. So you have to, I don't know, be clever and non-headline grabbing in the way you deal with this, and it seems like Pochettino's word salad is a good way to do that.
Yeah, I think he's done a fine job here by all accounts. I mean, I don't know how hard the recruiting push has been behind the scenes, but he talked about Jesus Perez, his assistant, going to Augsburg and watching him there and talking with Banks, and Poch said that he's FaceTimed and Zoomed or maybe Google Meeted, who knows, right? But he's talked with the player as well, and said that we have great contact. Again, maybe this happened a little too late. Maybe Poch should have laid it on a little thicker back in September when he was called in and didn't see the field and then wasn't brought back in since then. I don't know exactly what could have happened here or should have happened here. It is a huge bummer, though, that the reporting was correct about all this. Basically, that Banks is still trying to decide where his future lies. And the situation is still the same. If he picks the U.S., he has an easier path to playing time. If he picks Germany, he has an easier path to notoriety and to actually winning soccer games. So I don't know which of those things is going to happen for him. I don't know where his preferences lie and the different things that he's going to factor into this decision. I cannot imagine it's an easy one. What I will say is, if Banks does decide to play for the U.S. and he decides that before the World Cup, he should be in the World Cup roster. He doesn't even have to see the field. He's just good enough to play. I look at these center backs, and it's such an uninspiring group for this team. You have Chris Richards as the obvious one, and then Tim Ream is probably going to start next to him, and then McKenzie, and then you've got Trusty and Robinson. I mean, those just are not – they're not great players for the international level at a World Cup. And Banks is not perfect either. Banks is still young. He is still immature. He still makes some bad decisions, but his talent can overcome some of those mistakes, where McKenzie and Trusty and Robinson in particular, I think they just don't have the same talent to bail them out. And they make mistakes too. So it seems to me that Banks is absolutely worth bringing to a World Cup should he be interested in coming with the U.S., and we just don't know how that's all going to pan out.
I don't disagree, Joe, with any of that, but I think it's trickier for a young player to drop them into an established pool. Like Tim Ream, for example, at the last World Cup was quite a late call up. Maybe not quite this late, but I think he'd only been. Did he come into the March? It was a Winter World Cup. There must have been a summer window. I think maybe he came into that before the World Cup. But obviously he'd been in and around and was experienced with the environment and the camp, and just generally had like a level of experience that Noki Banks doesn't. And so I hear all that, and I don't disagree. And players like Austin Trusty being in this pool raises my eyebrow, because he had an excellent Old Firm derby in amongst a terrible season for Celtic. But I still think it's quite difficult to drop him into a World Cup and kind of expect him to swim.
It's happened before for different reasons. Like I think David Regie, ahead of the '98 World Cup, didn't get his citizenship until like a month before the tournament. So I think like maybe his debut for the U.S. is at a World Cup. He might have gotten a cap or two before that. Julian Green is probably the other example where he kind of gets thrown into camp pretty late and then ends up making that squad, much to the chagrin of Landon Donovan. It would be an interesting like decision for him not to play in these friendlies and then be called up. I mean, a decision for him alone to commit to the U.S., but then to see how he does, and it could be a major sink or swim moment, like at the biggest stage. But I hear everything you all have said. I don't feel like this is the most inspiring group aside from the one name. I do think that these friendlies represent a very real and strong test for this coming World Cup, especially for Tim Ream. And my hope is that we have some level of clarity about how that will go based on these upcoming friendlies, where I would assume Ream starts at least one, probably both, against Belgium and Portugal, correct? Before I go down that rabbit hole. Both of whom have plenty of attacking talent. And so there's a reality in which the U.S. are maybe playing against the ball, and he's really good at organizing and winning stuff in the air and leading the line. And we kind of come away thinking, like, okay, that's why he's there against like stronger opposition where we're sitting a little bit deeper. This could work. Or we get shredded, and there is very real fear as to how things are going to go, and maybe there's even more panic about Banks committing. But I'm at the very least grateful that we have strong opponents here that can test that defense and kind of give us a big reality check, and maybe a necessary reality check ahead of the World Cup.
Just one more quick thing for me on the center back pool before we move on, or the center backs in this roster in particular. If we do see Poch use a straight up 3 center back look, where they're defending with 3 center backs and attacking with 3 center backs, I'm curious to see who the third one's going to be. Is it going to be one of the non-Riemann Richards actual center backs? Or is it going to be Freeman or Scally? Spoiler, we'll talk about those guys in just a minute. But that's one thing I'm watching when it comes to actually the players that are in this roster, is who is the third center back? Is it one of the big trees, or is it somebody else?
Ooh, well, let's tease that. And when we come back after these messages, we'll talk about the fullbacks and much more. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to USMNT Weekly. We are talking about the March roster, the players who will be heading to the home of US soccer, Atlanta, Georgia, in a few days' time. Taylor, let's talk about the fullbacks, shall we? We've got Joe Scally, we've got Alex Freeman, Max Afton, stupid sexy Max Afton to give him his full name, and Anthony Robinson as well. We have a Serginho Dest-shaped injured hole in this group as well.
Yeah, I didn't count Banks is one of my would-be on the roster for sure if he were committed players. So I guess I said 3 players are missing that would be in the squad. Maybe make that 4 with Banks.
I'm curious who that last one is, by the way, but we'll talk about that later.
Sure. But Dest is one of them for sure, and I think is a big miss for this team. Maybe this is me just trying to like see silver linings. I don't think it is. I think it actually could be useful for the United States to not have Dest, but to have some of the other options that they do have here and further forward when we get to some of those players. Joe Scally is a primary example of that. Like, Gladbach have not been good this season. They are safely out of the relegation zone for now. They tend to flirt with it. But he has been good, and he has been more attacking. He's assisted goals, maybe even scored a goal, but just been much more involved in attacking play, many more touches in the box, many more kind of carries forward, and that's what we wanted to see from him. So I'm excited to see him in this squad. I don't know if any of that will be utilized, because I think, to Joe's point, we might see him listed as a right back in like a 4-2-3-1, and then he is playing as a right center back and staying home a lot of the time. But it gives us that different little look, especially with Alex Freeman in there. It could be the 2 of them starting on the right side and combining. It could be just one of them. And then on the left, we've got Jedi back, we presume fully fit, because if he weren't, he would not be here. That is established. So that he is here, we would assume that means he will be able to start at least one game or play some consistent minutes. But I've liked everything I've seen from Max Arfsten in a bad Columbus Crew team this season. He's created his own opportunities. He is very confident going forward, as we know. Very handsome as well, if you're Ryan Bailey. And so I think there is plenty to be excited about from a, let's see what happens standpoint in these friendlies, and then also having that one familiar, proven name in Jedi Robinson back in the team.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Taylor, across the board there. I am curious to see how Poch is going to use the right backs, especially. And you talked about that a little bit with Scally, where if he's going to play, he's probably going to stay home deeper as a right back turned right-sided center back, or maybe just as a straight-up right center back if the U.S. is playing a back three in both attack and defense. I'm curious what happens also when Dest is healthy. Who goes home, right? Because I think that's part of the question, Taylor, and I like how you set out. There are a few guys, at least, who are going to be in this roster if they're healthy, which means that there's a few guys at least that can't be in this roster when all is said and done. And it's a 27-player roster with 4 goalkeepers, as we established. So one of those guys is going to go home in the goalkeeper spot. But you still have to make some other substitutions here, because that only gets you to 26. So back in November, and I was looking at this, Poch brought 5 fullbacks and 4 center backs, and I'm counting Scally and Freeman as the fullbacks there. This time around, he brought 5 center backs and 4 fullbacks, still counting those same players in the same positions. So I am wondering if it's going to be one of those center backs that goes home. If it's one of Robinson, Trusty, and McKenzie, who makes way for Dest to come back into this team, because I think Poch appreciates Scally's positional flexibility, and I think Freeman is one of his guys, and deservedly so, and I would probably give Freeman minutes myself over Joe Scally. But that is something to watch, not just how these players get used now, but also who makes way when Dest is actually fit and healthy, because of course he is a lock for this team.
Graham, any thoughts here?
Just think it's quite funny how the narrative, or the mission, I guess, for Joe Scally has changed from, okay, so you're good defensively, but we need to see more of you in an attacking sense. And then he goes to Gladbach for a season and he's like, see, I'm doing it. And they're like, no, forget all about that. Right centre back. Which might actually work for him. I've always quite liked Joe Scally in that role, while accepting he is quite limited. But in that position, you maybe don't need to do so much going forward. So I think that is the big question of this pool, while also acknowledging Taylor's smaller question about Jedi Robinson, who, yes, is fit again. I think he started the last 2 league games for Fulham, actually has played the full 90 minutes of the last 2 league games, which is very encouraging. But he is still building up physicality, and I know some Fulham fans have discussed how his crossing hasn't been up to the standard of last season. And look, he's never been like a Trent Alexander-Arnold, but last season it felt like he'd improved that side of his game, and I think he's been a little bit wayward this season. So it still feels like he is finding top form, and when Jedi is in top form, the US is a better team. So I'm hopeful we will see at least something encouraging from him.
Excellent stuff. Okay, why don't we move on to the middle of the park, the central midfield pack. We've got Sebastian Berhalter, Johnny Cardoso, Aidan Morris, Christian Roldan, and Tanner Tessman. Now, Joe, there's a few interesting kinks here. Obviously, no Tyler Adams in this one. He's injured. I come at this from a place of relative ignorance, definitely compared to you three. My question is for Yunus Musa. What does he have to do to get into this kind of pack? And is it purely sporting, these decisions, do we think?
Convince everyone it's 2022 again?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think as a player, he's maybe not quite regressed, but he hasn't been having as many opportunities for Atalanta. He's played some, but I don't think he's done enough to change Poch's mind that he should be a central midfielder for this group. So I really do think it is sporting, and I also don't have a problem with it. I mean, I would have been perfectly happy to see Musa in this roster. I'm not going to throw a fit that he's not in this roster. I mean, I just don't see a whole lot of reason to really be swayed one way or the other. If you really pressed me on it, I would say I would rather have Morris in this team. I would rather have Musa in this team than Berhalter or Morris or certainly than Cardoso. But it doesn't really matter a whole lot to me. And I think that's probably where Poch is he's comfortable with some of these guys that are in this group. And Musa has been in his team before, but was mixed and hasn't really found stable footing at Atalanta. So I think that's why this all comes together. Really, other than Musa and McGlynn, because McGlynn is the other one that I would have down. He was injured late last fall, so he missed some time at the end of the year. And now he's healthy again and playing for Houston, and Poch didn't call him up. So that feels like the other just sporting omission from this roster. And again, I can completely understand it. I like McGlynn. I would bring him over some of the other people that are in this group. But I do think it is a very reasonable group of players from Pochettino, and there's probably somebody who's ready to make way for Adams in particular when he's healthy. It's, I don't know, probably going to be Cardoso or Morris if I really had to guess, maybe Berhalter. But I think this is a fine group of players that Poch has called in.
Joe, when we were seeing Jack McGlynn with the U.S., my memory is that he ended up playing in more advanced positions, largely because I think there weren't many other options there. Does that vibe with your memory?
Yeah, he played during ahead of the Gold Cup and even at the Gold Cup a bit. He played quite high and wide on the right side, which is just not the way to use Jack McGlynn, even though he can score some goals. So maybe that's also part of it, is that Poch doesn't know exactly how he wants to use someone like him.
Yeah. Or I think I would agree with that. And I would say, or he does know where he wants to use him and it's there. And then you look at the other players that are candidates for that spot and they are just better. So that's the only other way I could kind of understand that absence, is just that you look at where they were thinking about utilizing him and there's just better options.
Yeah. And just to sort of round out this group of players as well, we went ahead and listed McKennie in a future position that we'll get to in just a second, but McKennie could very much be a part of this group. We don't really know how Poch views Weston McKennie and where he views him, other than that he was quite effusive in his praise of McKennie in his presser yesterday. But McKennie's another guy who could be in this group, which makes me wonder, Graham, who do you think are the starting two? You're playing big games in this window that Poch has already talked about as being an extension of the World Cup, which again is just what coaches say. But still, who do you play? Because you're missing Adams and McKennie might be higher, and who's left?
Oh, I'm not sure you're going to like the answer I might give here. I think it might be Johnny Cardoso. I mean, it is a real blow that Tyler Adams isn't in this squad, because we know he's going to be a central pillar of the team at the World Cup, assuming he's fit, right? And so this is another missed opportunity to try and build some chemistry with whoever is going to be his starting partner at the World Cup. So this is not to say that I think Johnny Cardoso is going to start at the World Cup, but I think in terms of an overlay of skill set, Johnny is maybe the closest to Tyler Adams. And I'm well aware that I'm like the only member of the Johnny Cardoso fan club maybe in the world. But I do think there is a role for him in this.
Not even Johnny? Not even his parents?
That's how low his confidence is. That's how low his self-esteem is. That is rough. But I think we have seen enough evidence now to know what Johnny Cardoso is. And the fact of the matter is that he is firmly part of the rotation for Atletico Madrid. I think that has to count for something. And he might not be what the US needs as like a starting figure alongside Tyler Adams in a double pivot and you know, the system that Pochettino uses. But I think as a Tyler Adams deputy, he is the best sort of midfield destroyer that the US has in that position. And broadly looking at his role in the roster, I think of him as like a special ops player. I've already said my piece on Johnny Cardoso. Like, if you have a lead to defend against a high caliber opponent in the final 15 minutes, I think Johnny's your guy for that, because I've seen him do it for Atletico Madrid at a high level in the Champions League and La Liga this season. So I would have him involved. I probably would have him start these games, because my theory is that Pochettino wanted to see more of Johnny last year until injuries got in the way. And he is just better than we have seen for the US so far. Obviously, there are questions over what his ceiling is as a player. But come on, his performances for the US last year were like laughably bad. They were like Kinski bad for the US, and he is better than that. So I want to see a good chunk of minutes from him in these two games.
I was like, Klaus Kinski? Who is he referencing? And then I remembered. Oh, poor Spurs. Poor Spurs.
Poor Spurs indeed.
Definitely. Taylor, any more thoughts on this group? Christian Rodin should get some minutes, shouldn't he? I feel like he should.
I think, yeah, he should. I have in my notes, I assume Adams is the only definite inclusion absent from this camp, so the pressure is on everyone in this group that isn't Christian Roldan, because I think he is very much in the squad and has proven his value in that way. But this feels like a group where players can definitely play themselves into contention, and obviously, conversely, can play themselves out of it. Right now, I have Aiden Morris as the most likely to be left off when Tyler Adams is fully fit and ready to go. But that's why you play the friendlies. We'll see if he gets some minutes, and we'll see what he does with those minutes. I'm assuming we'll see something like maybe a Roldan and a Tessman combination for one of the games, and then maybe like a Roldan and a Cardoso combination, or some rotation of those three.
Excellent stuff. All right, why don't we take one more quick pause? When we come back, let's talk about the remaining groups, to talk about those attacking midfielders and the strikers. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to USMNT Weekly. We're going through the March roster, who'll be playing on real grass in Atlanta. Good to see. The stadium with the hole that's shaped like a certain thing is going to have real grass underneath it for these games.
The robot butt.
The robot butt in.
It's actually robot.
Bleep, bleep, bloop. All right, Taylor. Why don't we talk?
You don't want to keep this going?
Taylor, let's talk about the attacking midfielders, the non-striker attackers, of which we are including Weston McKennie. We're also including Brendan Aronson, Alec Tillman, Gio Reyna.
Let's go.
Christian Pulisic, and Tim Weah. So what are we making, Taylor, of that group? Obviously, an injury here to the literal poster boy of this group, Diego Luna, now literally wearing the shirt with pride on the posters, but not in this group.
Is he the fourth one, Taylor?
He has been in
That's
my
what I
squad, and he remains in my squad. I love me some Diego Luna, and I love his jersey unveil as well. I do put stock in that. It would be kind of a self-own to have one of the key marketing players then not make the team, though I believe they listed Tim Ream as Tim Weah, so they've already done some marketing self-owns themselves in some of this promotional stuff. But I'm believing that they maybe asked Pochettino, like, he's probably in the team, right? Before doing this.
I had this discussion with someone else because I genuinely don't know the answer. It would my common sense says you wouldn't sell the jersey on a player who's not going to make the squad. But do they get a nod? Do they like it will have been done last year? I genuinely don't know the answer. I think they probably get a
Sean
subtle one.
Zawadzki again, just showing up for the photo shoot. Like, if I'm in the photo, I get to be part of the team.
Don't we get this quite often at the start of like Premier League seasons when players are pictured in the new jersey and you're like, oh, he has to be. Oh wait, he's been sold.
Yeah, I think Kane might have done
League,
at Spurs.
Yeah.
To this group, I will say not just because of Badge FC, but not just because of Badge FC. This is a very strong group of players. It's very fun to see how many like big clubs at a high level are represented within a group that you want to have a lot of talent and experience, and we do. And then there's Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna is the interesting inclusion for me. I know Joe loves him in all ways, in every way. And I think it seems like Pochettino, at the very least, is interested in what he will bring into the team. Feels like, more than anything else, a chance to evaluate his present fitness and temperament. He has a grand total of 26 minutes so far in the Bundesliga in 2026. That's 2 substitute appearances. And frustratingly, maybe not coincidentally, but I'm choosing to see it as coincidence, that coincides with their improved form. In their last 6 games, Gladbach, 3 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. He had 5 minutes in the Augsburg win when it was already 4-0, and he played 21 minutes in a 0-0 draw with Hamburg, where he is brought on to be a creative spark. Not a lot of creative attacking sparking there. So I think with maybe the Luna absence, I do think that probably opened the door for Gio Reyna to be in this one, because I'm not sure who else would have fallen out, and I'm not sure who will fall out when Diego Luna is back in there. Maybe that's what these friendlies are all about. But I think Reyna coming in, proving that he is like fit and still very, very good, as Joe has outlined before, I think keeps him in the conversation. I think it will be very telling if we see him get minutes, specifically meaningful minutes at these friendlies. Not 10 minutes at the end, but a good 30-minute chunk as a substitute, potentially even a start in one of these games.
I like your theory there, Taylor, about Luna sort of making way for Reyna. It's possible. I don't know if I agree. I mean, we don't know ultimately, so this is all speculation, but I think Poch really likes Gio Reyna. At least
he's
as a soccer
he's
player,
on
right?
your wavelength. He is absolutely on your wavelength.
I'm going to read the quote, and this one's going to make more sense than one that Graham read. Quote, I think we really know that he's, referring to Gio, a very special talent and very special player. I think to give the possibility, even if it's not playing too much with his club, it can be very useful for us. That's our mindset in the way that we made the decision to bring Gio into this camp. That's a quote from Pochettino. That's what I've been saying. It really doesn't matter that he hasn't been playing for his club. It only matters if you can't control Gio Reyna the person, right? And he's going to destroy your locker room and whatever. That's the whole reason you hired Pochettino in the first place. Like, if Poch can't do that, he shouldn't have this job, or firmly. And part of doing that might be not bringing him to the World Cup, right? So I'm still leaving the door open for that. But every time Gio Reyna steps on the field for the U.S. men's national team, he's a good player. He was very, very good for the U.S. against Paraguay in November. Oh, who's the U.S. playing in the World Cup group stage? Paraguay. It wouldn't matter. I actually don't really care about that at all. I would call Gio Reyna in regardless, as long as he could give me 30 minutes. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. So I am a little skeptical, Taylor, that, it's Luna right back in and Gio Reyna out. I don't know who it is. I don't know who makes way for who. Maybe it's one of the other central midfielders that makes way, and you sort of move McKennie in your roster allocation picture into the deeper midfield spots just so that you can squeeze one more attacking guy in there. Maybe that's how you solve this a little bit. But I don't know who comes out for who. And that is a good problem to have. But I think if Gio Reyna plays well in this window, which I think he will, and if he plays at all or is healthy enough to be called into the World Cup roster, I think he's going to be there, man. I really do.
I feel like we've had this conversation many times, but we're going to do it again. Because where I like fundamentally disagree with you, Joe, and I don't get it, is like, how can form not matter? How can, like, if he's played no minutes or 26 minutes in 4 months, like, that has to affect his ability to play. Yes, he is a very good player. Yes, he has great technical ability. He might still be better than a lot of people, but there is going to be just a looseness in the touch. He's not going to be as dialed in as people who are playing every single weekend. There has to be at least some downgrade in his performance, or at least in the expectation of that performance, and it just doesn't seem like there is for you.
I think that's true, Taylor, and you said it well. But Gio Reyna, 80% of Gio Reyna is better than 100% of Diego Luna. 80% of Gio Reyna is better. So that's the thing, right? It doesn't have to be Luna. It could be Aarons. It could be any of these guys. That's what I'm saying, is that Gio Reyna is so talented, and we see this. This is the other data point. Like, I suppose reasonable people could disagree, and maybe that's what's happening here. When I watch Gio Reyna play for the U.S. men's national team, he is consistently one of the best players on either team that's on the field. He clearly has limitations. He's fitness-wise is not there. Like, something has happened to his legs, maybe since he was 16 or whatever. He's had injury after injury, and clearly is not at 100% physically of what he could have been or what he was when he was younger. But I still fundamentally believe, even if you're correct, Taylor, that 80% of Reyna is better than every non-Pulisic attacker, and maybe McKennie, I'll say, in this roster.
I don't agree with that last part, Joe, but what I will say is we have evidence of, and broadly speaking, I am team form on this, but broadly speaking, looking at Gio Reyna, he's been in this situation before where he has barely played club level soccer, and
he's always in this situation.
Yeah, he's always in this situation. Before the November window, I was very skeptical we were going to see Gio Reyna, and I probably would not have had him in my roster. But he came into that window in this exact situation, and he was great. And I completely saw your point, Joe. And it seems like that has won Pochettino over as well, where he is now making the exact argument that you have made all along, and even contradicting himself, where people are going, yeah, but Poch, said players had to be playing consistent minutes. Shut up. No, I didn't. No, I didn't say that. Didn't say that at all. Graham. So, like, I think I understand both angles and both arguments, but at this point, we do have the evidence that Gio Reyna can come into this team and perform, even if he's not doing it at club level.
I think the clear precedent here, and one that Mauricio Pochettino has clearly followed, is that Mauricio Pochettino has watched the Oscar-nominated Best Picture Formula One and seen Brad Pitt come in with no form at all. He's passed it, but he comes in and, he finishes lots of races.
Are you just paid by that movie? Like, is that why it gets so much play on this show? Because you all have like a paid sponsorship deal with them?
We were part of the Oscar lobby.
Yeah.
When are the Oscars, by the way, Ryan? We need to really push it before that ceremony.
Checks watch. Interesting.
Yeah. Next year.
Yeah, you guys still getting paid after the fact. You mentioned him coming in last, September, was it?
November.
We were talking about November against Paraguay.
So
but
that's when he's moved, right? That's when he makes the move to Gladbach, obviously. Like, my response to that is a concern that, like, I remember when he makes that move, and I think I posted it in the Discord, there's a picture of him when he, like, first goes into training and he gets, like, the tunnel and, like, whatever, like, light hazing it is, and he just looks like a happy kid. He looks stoked to be there. He looks excited for a fresh start. And I wonder, this is complete speculation, if that impacts his performance, that he then goes to the U.S. feeling lighter, feeling happier, feeling rejuvenated, fresh start, and his performance reflects that. And now we're in the kind of same situation he's been in previously. I'm wondering what his form looks like now and what his attitude and mentality are. That's where I think, like, you all might be right, and he might still be an elite talent who can be a difference maker. If his attitude and mentality are what they've been previously at points, I also think this is a chance for him to play himself out of contention. If he's going in there and being just sort of obstinate and not bringing the vibes up and not really facilitating good work in training, I don't know if he's still in there. So either way, I think we learn a lot coming out of these camps about his involvement or lack thereof.
Gio Reyna is the gift that keeps on giving for people that do soccer podcasts 6 days a week, man. What an absolute icon. I mean, Taylor, I don't fully understand that point, I'll be honest, because the November window is the last time he played for the U.S. He didn't play in September or in October, so he'd already been at Gladbach and already been injured since it sounds like the moment they were talking about. So I just don't know. I feel like you said it already. We've talked about this a bajillion times. Gio Reyna is always injured. He's never 100% fit. He's never going to be 100% fit. He's probably not going to play major minutes for a club ever. And I feel like we're watching different players when he's with the U.S. because I see a player that's really good and impactful, and it doesn't seem like – and there are many people – there's not just you that disagree with me. There's a lot of people out there that disagree with me, and that's okay. I just – simple as this. I would bring Gio Reyna into my team whenever I could and whenever he could play at least 30 minutes a game.
I think, Joe, it's that you, to my mind, are such a, like, rational analytics – this is happening because this is happening, not because this, like, and yet with him, it's like, it doesn't matter if he's playing or not. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He'd be on one leg. He's still the best player. It feels more emotional.
It's not.
Like, honestly, than I think any of your other takes about players.
I it is possible that that's there, and I'm just not recognizing it. I genuinely feel like this is my most analytical take, which is like strip away all the narrative nonsense, like strip away 2022, strip away all the club stuff. If what we're solving for is how can the U.S. men's national team win soccer games? That's what we're talking about. That's what we're all talking about. If that's what we're solving for, Gio Reyna, whenever he's on the field, to my eye, which could be wrong, whenever he's on the field, is helpful at accomplishing that objective. Like, that's what matters here. So I really could not care less, frankly, about what happens at club level with Gio Reyna or with any of these players. That's not a Gio Reyna thing. I was the Carbonite guy. Like Tim Weah, I talk about this all the time, but Tim Weah, that does make sense out of context. Sorry. I'm not going to explain it.
That was Han Solo, who was the
Shoot, I thought it was me. Tim Weah was like playing or barely playing or playing poorly at times in the 2022 World Cup cycle. He was the U.S.'s best player throughout World Cup qualifying. Like, it just doesn't matter as much as everybody says it does. We have so much evidence about that. It doesn't really relate in the same way. It's different teams, different players around you, different tactical demands, different travel, different opponents. All these things are so different. We way over-index on what's happening at club level for every player, not just Gio Reyna, but Gio, of course, is the most polarizing of them all. I made my point clear. I'm glad he's on this roster.
And to that I say, so just strip away when he self-destructed a national team at a World Cup, and when he's constantly injured and cannot play. But when he is fully fit and able to play, he's very good in the very limited stretches that has happened in the last.
But that's my whole thing about the World Cup stuff. Poch needs to handle that, and if he doesn't, and Gio Reyna destructs, obviously Gio Reyna bears culpability for that. So does Pochettino. Like, that's his job, is to sort that out. You're the biggest man in the locker room. Like, you have the biggest name. Go do your job. So I'm trusting that Poch is going to do his job.
Do you think he just shackles Claudio and locks him away?
Yeah, must be.
All right, I'm going to move us on. Let's move on to the final group of players to discuss. Sure? Yeah, let's do it.
We didn't even talk about any of the other guys in this group. It is a good group.
Yeah, they're all there. They're fine.
This is where the talent lies, I would say, in that attacking midfield, isn't it? Very much centered in that grouping. But we need to talk about the... Sorry, Taylor, go on.
I do. To Joe's point, you're correct. Because the other player that I alluded to a long time ago is Tim Weah. And him being included in this is one of the biggest question marks I have. Not because I don't think he should be there. He should be there. But because I have no idea where he fits in this team with the way they have played and what Pochettino seems to want from them. He doesn't seem to want a wide winger who stays wide and stays forward and tries to get in behind. Maybe we'll see some of that in these friendlies. It's where I think we might end up seeing him as that sort of hybrid wing back / winger. Like earlier I said, a 4-2-3-1. I'm assuming Weah would be on the right side of that 3, staying forward at times, but then also dropping in, and then Joe Scally becomes a right center back and Weah becomes the right wing back in a back 5 or what have you. That's where I think we might end up seeing more of Weah, but he's a really interesting one because otherwise I'm not sure how he fits and where he fits.
Talking about that right side, do we think there's a chance we see Wes McKennie on that right side? I know we haven't seen it from Poch, but the thing with Wes McKennie and Poch is he hasn't been included in 2 of the last, 3 camps, and he's here now. And seems to be back in Pochettino's good graces. Called Juventus 10 players plus Wes McKennie, or words to that effect.
Yep.
And that has kind of been right in 2026. He's in the form of his life. He's Juventus' best player. Do you know where he's played? I'm just looking through his Who Scored page just to make sure. At least his last 4 games have been as the right-sided midfielder with a back 3 behind him. It's a very similar position to the one that exists in this US team. And so if we're talking about Reyna and Tillman and Pulisic and fitting 2 of those players into the dual 10 positions, putting McKennie in that position with Dest out injured might actually be a bit of a solution to that.
Here we go. Last but not least, let's talk about 3 more players. The strikers. We've got, Graham, the Champions League's Folarin Balogun. We've got the Champions League's Ricardo Pepi. And we've got the Championships, Patrick Agyemang. He's
all
back,
the same.
baby. Woo! Yeah. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, Graham, Hadji Wright with something that you mentioned earlier, which I don't want to bring up again.
A sensation in his groin.
Yeah.
Poor Hadji Wright. I think the interesting thing with the group that has been called up, these 3 players, is if there's any indicators of the pecking order, right? Because it's quite clear at this point that Balogun, barring anything major, will be the starting number 9 at the World Cup. Who's the deputy behind him? I think a lot of people would have Pepe as the number 2. But Poch loves a bit of Big Pat, and he's in good scoring form for Derby County and the Champos. So I'll be interested to see if he does rotate. I think he probably will between the 2 games. I don't think Balogun will play 180 minutes over the 2 matches. Who does he turn to as that number 2 centre forward? I think that's the big question with this group.
Yeah.
Weston McKennie.
It kind of sounds that way. These are the strikers I would bring to the World Cup, probably. I also find if Haji Wright recovers and comes to the World Cup, I don't know who you drop for that. If it is Ajiman or Pepe, I probably wouldn't. Maybe it's one of the attacking midfielders, and you just roll a little lighter there and have Haji as a guy who can play off the wing. I think these three are the players that I would bring, and I'm glad that they're here.
Excellent. Taylor, do you concur?
I don't. I would take Haji Wright over Big Pat, much as it will upset the two co-hosts on the bottom of my recording screen specifically. Not sure how that relates to everybody else. But yeah, I think Ajimang makes sense to be here for now, but 0 goals in his last 6 for Coventry, only 1 in his last 8. Haji Wright is in better form even with the injury, and I think has shown brightly enough for the U.S. under Pochettino that I think he definitely merits inclusion. So maybe it ends up being 4, but I had it as 1 goalkeeper drops, so that gets us to 26. Then probably 1 center back to make way for Dest, 1 midfielder, probably Aiden Morris, and then 1 forward, Big Pat, for Haji Wright, most likely.
Excellent stuff. There we go. So that's our group. What's the vibe check, Taylor? How are we feeling about this group as a whole? Do we need a 5th and 6th goalkeeper, perhaps? What are we thinking?
Enraged at Joe Lowry for his Gio Reyna love, but otherwise feeling pretty good.
I can't believe we're still talking about this.
It's almost like your opinion doesn't change based on the sample size in front of you. Anyway, so I would say I'm very excited about this group. Even with the injuries and the absences, I'm sad we don't get Tyler Adams. That's probably the biggest one, because I think the chemistry and familiarity and just allowing other players to play alongside him, a player that we know is going to be a starter if and when he's there, like, I think it would have given us a chance to see, like, what does the Adams-Cardoso partnership look like against stronger opposition under Pochettino? What does Adams and Tessman look like, or Adams and Roldan? So I'm sad about that, but otherwise I feel like some of the absences give us opportunities to experiment, gives the other players opportunities to kind of raise their game or raise their estimations in the coaching staff's eyes.
Yeah, I'm feeling quite good about this roster. Having gone through this process, even with some of the injuries, the fact that we're discussing who might have to drop out and who might actually not make the World Cup roster. And obviously we're tinkering around the edges here with 1 or 2 players, as I said at the start. This is the core of the World Cup squad now. It does make me realise that this squad even, or this pool is deeper than it was even like a matter of months ago. So I do think
the
after
shuffling
everything
was useful.
I think it definitely was, yeah. I think Poch, I mean, obviously the proof will be in the pudding. I look forward to getting grouped in at the World Cup. I don't think that's going to happen, when I was actually a little bit concerned that might happen for a period. But yeah, I think the process has been a good one until now.
Excellent stuff. So there you go. That is So Taylor, go ahead.
Sorry, Ryan. I think it's worth noting, because we haven't really talked about opposition at all. And, like, it is 2 very good opponents who are bringing, even with injuries and absences, they're still very good and will be difficult for the United States. Like, what are we hoping for anything in terms of results? Are we hoping, like, obviously we want the U.S. to win always, that's ideal, but, like, I'm not sure if losses are the worst thing if it gives us a chance to kind of rule some names out or figure out what definitely isn't working and what definitely could work. Do any of you have thoughts on what a sort of good window looks like, including results or not?
Yeah, I think playing competent in soccer, like not getting embarrassed is a low bar, so probably something a little bit higher than that. But I'm not too bothered if there wins, losses, or draws. But I think the U.S., if they're going to make the run that they want to make at the World Cup, they need to show well, whatever that means to you, against these kinds of teams. So that is sort of where my bar is. It'll be sort of a know it when you see it situation, but not get wildly outplayed and actually like be in the game. That's sort of the bar, because I don't think they're going to be the better team in these games. I tend to think that the Uruguay game was more of Uruguay not showing up than it was the U.S. being awesome. But we can leave room for a little bit of both of those things. But either way, I think being within a few inches, right, of the game is kind of where I'm at for this. Although I'll think about that more. I imagine we'll do a preview show on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think we want this to be as close as it can be to a road test for an actual like knockout game at the World Cup against a team of this caliber, which is to say, in a weird way, kind of want Belgium and Portugal to have lots of the ball and signs that they're taking it seriously and they're treating it as a road test as well, because realistically that's what the task is going to be for the US at a World Cup. And then we see ways that the US can, within that game dynamic, then hurt those teams. That would make me feel pretty good. And the bar is essentially, as Joe says, don't get embarrassed. Don't have a result that lingers beyond the full-time whistle. You want to have something that you can move on. If it's going to go negatively, don't make it so negatively that you're still thinking about it when the World Cup is close.
There we go. Excellent stuff. So it's Belgium on March 28th, Portugal on the 31st, in Atlanta, where the grass is real, the concessions are cheap, and the roof is sphincter-shaped. One last thing to get to on this episode. We've got some TSS scouting reports to run through. Taylor, would you like to read one out using your mouth?
Would I? From Ed Ritter, scouting Adri Mehmeti, 16-year-old central defense midfielder for the Red Bulls. Mehmeti once again went the full 90 in a 1-1 road draw. He had far fewer touches than usual, just 34, but was incredibly effective with 18 of 19 passing and an XG plus XA, expected goals and expected assists, of 0.85 per FOTMOB, Joe's favorite thing. Great numbers for a 16-year-old who's only 3 weeks away from his birthday.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Taylor. I've got one from NT Brand here, who is scouting Claire Hutton, a midfielder from Bay FC. Claire played in 2 of the 3 games for the USWNT in the recent She Believes Cup, subbing on at halftime in the 2-0 win over Argentina and starting and playing 80 minutes in the 1-0 over Canada. Claire also started and played the full 90 in a debut for new team Bay FC in their 2-1 win over Denver Summit, who were playing their first game in NWSL. With her performance, Claire earned a deserved Player of the Match with an 8.6 rating from FOTMOB. So much FOTMOB love so far. This correspondent with the far more respected TSS Discord eye test, in which Discord user MJ observed that Claire Hutton is so the best player on Bay. LOL.
Yeah. Love it. She is. So that tracks. I like that.
Good. Joe, go ahead.
Speaking of MJ, we've got MJ scouting Kennedy Fuller, a 19-year-old attacking midfielder for Angel City. Fuller started, scored, and assisted a goal in a 4-0 win to begin her 3rd year with Angel City. The USWNT U20 standout was listed as the team's right winger, but operates largely in a free role in possession, combining often with Giselle Thompson on the right and finding space in the opposing defense. The game's first goal came from her drifting wide, cutting inside, and driving into the half space past defenders before beating Alyssa Nair at the near post. Her assist was a strong, precise corner kick delivery to her defender's forehead. Defensively, Fuller led Angel City's press and operated as an advanced destroyer to great effect against a Chicago team that suffered all afternoon. Fuller plays in one of the USWNT's deepest positions on the field, so we'll need to keep her performances at this level if she wants to catch Emma Hayes' eyes.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you very much, MJ. Graham, do one.
So Royce Alvarez has been in touch with a scouting report on Landry Walker, a 16-year-old defensive midfielder for San Antonio FC. For now, Royce puts in the scouting report. It starts, breaking news klaxon, so sound that klaxon, Ryan Bailey. Landry Walker is reportedly training abroad, thank you, with his VAI Bundesliga side Darmstadt 98. A little background information, San Antonio and Darmstadt are both sister clubs, and as a result, their respective sport franchises entered into a club partnership in July of 2024 that includes youth development, marketing strategies, training methods, and sports science developments. All sounds very interesting. Landry is the first member of, I think it is, of a San Antonio FC to train abroad within this partnership, which is an incredible platform, to show off his talents. A few years ago, San Antonio wonder kid Jose Halagos trained with Bayern Munich and ended up being transferred to a team in the Danish top flight for a record fee. So hopefully Landry can follow in his footsteps to a solid European football career, says Royce.
There you go. Can't think of Landry without thinking of Friday Night Lights in my head, but that's just me. But thank you very much for the TSS scouting reports that have been submitted there. If you'd like to do so, if you'd like to join in on the fun, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the URL you should type in to your browser. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much for all your USMNT weekly goodness. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Ryan Bailey. And I would remind you that Graham has agreed to loan you $180 to buy that shirt, so make sure you follow up on that.
Thank you very much, Graham. I'll send you my Venmo very shortly. I appreciate you, Graham.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey, and I'll send you a shirt, apparently.
What a good deal I've made today.
White shirt with Sharpie.
Joe Lowry, thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks, guys. What I've learned is I'm not asking for nearly enough of Graham on a regular basis, so I filed that away for the future.
Yeah. Folded right away.
Right away.
Yeah, very good. Listener, thank you very much for joining us on this one. We appreciate you. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.